the most successful people are the ones who are most willing to feel negative emotions. Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andee Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Welcome back, everybody. I'm absolutely thrilled to be in your earbuds today. I'm so excited that you've joined me for another episode. And I think it's funny when I say I'm excited to be here, because what that means literally is I'm in your earbuds or your computer. As you all know, I'm a huge fan of podcasts. It's amazing how deeply I feel connected to the people whose podcasts I listen to. Like, I'd instantly recognize their voice if we were on a call together. I get a sense of who they are. And I know many of you feel the same way when listening to me, because I get your emails and your messages, and I absolutely love that connection. This relationship we built together is so fascinating. I'm amazed by the way technology allows us to connect like this. It allows us to stay connected to people all over the world. As we've been traveling, I've been able to talk to my boys in Chile. I've been able to talk to my son in the United States. I've been able to talk to my girls as we're traveling around all of the different places. And so grateful for technology. More people have come to me for help about learning Connect Method Parenting through this podcast than anything else I've ever done. I think a big part of that is because I'm sharing so much here truly for free and doing it consistently for you all. And I love that I can use this podcast to do that. A few years ago, I wrote a book called Connect Method Parenting. And I used to be in awe, and I should say I'm still in awe. But before the podcast, I used to be in awe solely of the book, because someone would read that book and change their parenting journey. And I'd get emails saying, "Hey, thanks for your book. It has changed my life." And yet I had never met that person. I'd never spoken to them. I'd never coached them directly. But somehow, through my experiences, through sharing what worked for me, they were able to take that and apply it to their own life in a way that made a real difference. And to me, that's exactly what this work is about. I spent years, it's just insane, struggling with my parenting, face planting over and over again. And this was after me thinking I was going to nail parenting. I was going to just pass through with flying colors. But it was the failure, the inability I had to be the parent I wanted to be, and eventually learning everything I needed to learn, going through that dark night of the soul, self-confronting, looking at all of the places that I needed to look at and self-confront in myself to become the person who would eventually put all the pieces together and create Connect Method Parenting. That has been such a crazy, amazing journey. And it's interesting because before that even happened, before I was even a parent, I was in nursing school, even before that, when I was in high school, I always had this deep desire to contribute. I wanted to make a real impact. I wanted to leave the world a little better than I found it. And what I didn't realize at the time was that in order for me to have an impact in the world, I'd have to get over myself. I would have to face myself, really get to know who I was and understand what it meant to navigate negative emotions. I would have to push through all of my self-limiting beliefs in order to create something truly valuable for others. And I tell students in League all of the time, you don't have the right to hold yourself back from helping someone just because of your own self-doubt. You know what I mean? When I was writing my book, I struggled so much in my ability to write that book. I liked English in school. I liked literature. I love reading. I'm awful at grammar. And spelling for some reason. I think it's something in my brain, a processing thing, but I'm better at it now, but I just have struggled with grammar and spelling. And I had an editor with the company that I used to help me create the book. And then my husband's an amazing editor. And I had all these people helping me. And I was so stuck in cycle after cycle. I think I started 10 versions of my book before I got very far. And it took me 3 years to get that thing written. And at the end, when I finally, the publishing company that I used gave me a deadline and said, you have to have it to us by this date. I had to put everything almost except for bare necessities aside. And I spent 6 months finishing it. It was so hard. Looking back now, I realized that if I had given into that doubt and into that frustration, if I let my worries or my fears or my inabilities win, that there would be thousands of people right now who might never have received that information. And what a loss that would have been for me to not have pushed through it. If I had held back my contribution just because I thought, well, it's my life and I can do whatever I want with it, I want you to think about the impact that has on me and on others. That's why I love the idea that working on ourselves, coaching ourselves is not just a luxury, it's a responsibility. So I'm sharing all of this not to say, oh, I'm this amazing person. I've got this important thing and I had to get it out. I'm saying we are all amazing people with important things that need to get out into the world. And we all have this responsibility to do it. And I truly believe that managing our minds, overcoming our insecurities, and pushing through our past, those things that are holding us back, is our responsibility. Because when we do those things, when we push through those things, the contributions we can make to the world is so much greater. That contribution could be showing up for your children in a way that changes the trajectory of their life. So I'm not saying you have to go contribute like Mother Teresa. I'm saying we are contributing as a parent. I think as a parent, first and foremost, is the best way we contribute to this world. And we have to confront ourselves and push through and decide that we are going to make ourselves available to be the parent we want to be for ourselves, for our kids. So that contribution might be how you show up for your family, how you interact with the people in your life, the example you set. What is your life an example of? Is it an example of someone who hides and avoids emotions and stays stuck? Or is it an example of someone who faces challenges head on and grows with them, grows through them, grows because of them? I was coaching a client this past week. She's an incredible human, an incredible student, and so open and willing to share and fully engage in the process that we're going through in Connect Method Parenting Inside League. And she told me some of her doubts, her fears of messing up, the hesitation she was having about fully showing up, and how she was feeling discouraged. And she wasn't sure about herself. And what I told her, and what I want to tell all of you, is this: feeling discouraged, feeling unsure, feeling inadequate doesn't mean something's gone terribly wrong. Somewhere along the line, we were taught that negative emotions mean something's broken, that if we feel down, something must be off track. But that's not true. Negative emotions are part of the process. They come up when we're evolving, when we're being honest with ourselves, when we're examining our thoughts and beliefs. So if you feel discouraged, if you feel unsure, self-doubt, it's because you're believing something about yourself. And that's where the real work begins. You're believing something about the process. And it's important to uncover what that belief is so you can remove it and go to the next level. I often say, you get through 101 and then it's 202 and then it's 303 and you're moving ever onward, getting a bachelor's, then a master's, then a PhD degree in parenting, in life, in being a human. It's so amazing. And I love that our kids give us regular opportunities to increase our emotional capacity. One of the things I told her is that, in my opinion, the most successful people are the ones who are most willing to feel negative emotions. The ones who are willing to step into discouragement, to sit with vulnerability, to face fear head on, to really look at it and feel these emotions, and to have the determination to allow them to be there without making anything wrong, to create safety around these emotions, to not let them stop them, to not make them mean something terrible, to see them as catalysts to the next level of growth. Those are the people who keep moving forward. When they come into league and I see the parents who make the most progress, they're the ones who are willing to step into the most vulnerability, the most negative emotions. And how we do anything is how we do everything. So in league, we don't just coach about parenting. It's really a group for parents trying to be amazing humans. And we have a strong foundation of what it looks like to respect other humans and how to be a parent who uses developmental psychology, uses attachment theory to be an amazing human, as you hear me talk about that on the podcast. But it's also about just being incredible and up-leveling all areas of your life. Because if we use parenting as an important area of our life that we want to up-level, those capacities we up-level in parenting up-level all areas of our life. So many people come through pivot and then transition into mastery and will tell me this is changing not just my parenting, it's healing my relationship with my spouse. It's allowing me to show up better at work. And I'm never surprised. I'm never surprised because that's how this works. The people who are willing then to face the discouragement, sit in the vulnerability, face the fear head on, those are the people who keep moving forward. There's always a temptation to quit. There's always a temptation to give up, to avoid the discomfort that comes from growth, comes from pushing ourselves beyond our norm, the status quo. When we go beyond that, when we say, no, I'm not okay with this anymore. I'm not okay being irritated with my teenagers. I'm not okay being frustrated at bedtime. I want to do better. And we do it from a place of love and abundance. That is going to bring on a whole tsunami of discomfort because we're pushing ourselves to growth. I always go back to the example of a little kid, a little 8-month-old, or however old. Some of mine were older than that. Some of mine were younger. Some 6-month-olds, right? That are learning to walk and they fail over and over and over again. They're face planting. But if they used that face plant as evidence that they couldn't learn to walk, they would never get up. They would never learn to walk. If they didn't keep getting up every time they fell, they would never build the strength to walk. I read somewhere that literally the muscles they build by falling and pushing themselves up and falling and pushing themselves up are the muscles they have to develop to walk. So the falling is as necessary to the process as the walking. But if they fell once and they decided to stay down, nothing would happen. Walking would never happen. But that's exactly what so many of us do as adults. We try something, we stumble, and we convince ourselves that that's it. We tell ourselves we're not cut out for it. We're not meant to be that amazing parent we thought we were going to be. We're not going to help that challenging child of ours work through their struggles. Or if it's in weight, we're not going to be able to lose that weight, or we're not going to be able to get that promotion. We're not going to be able to work on those important relationships because we're afraid to navigate the emotions that come up. And this isn't even what I wanted to really talk about. I wanted to mention this, or this kind of just came out as a little side note, because I feel that this topic of, I guess I would describe it either as failing ahead of time because we're not willing to feel those emotions, or being worried about these negative emotions is really coming up. And it's come up for me too, this whole 6-month travel international adventure we've been on. It has been surprising how many negative emotions have come up for me. And reflecting back, I really think it's just because I'm in new situations with new parameters, with new languages and new rules and new everything. It just feels very foreign. And because of that, my nervous system is on high alert. It has been on high alert. And it's been very interesting to go through this 6-month process. I mean, it's been amazing, don't get me wrong, but very surprising to have this come up. I didn't expect it. And so there's been a huge up level in my emotional capacity and my nervous system feeling safe in very unfamiliar situations. So I just felt like I wanted to share that with you all today, this failing ahead of time idea, this feeling full emotion. So I wanted to make sure you heard this because I think it really matters. It matters so much to me. It's really been part of my world lately. And I want you to show up. I want you to push past whatever it is that's standing in your way so that you don't stop until you get what you truly want. And my goal with parenting is that you create the relationships you want with your children that are so precious, so deep, so fulfilling, that you have the impact and influence with your children that you want to throughout their entire lifetime. I'm not talking about control or manipulation. I'm talking about a relationship that allows you to be part of their life, where they want you to be an advisor on their board, where they want to listen to you. Use that phrase a lot. You become the parent where your children want to listen to you, and that you have fun, lots of fun, more laughing, more fun. That's what I want for each and every one of you. I want you to feel the capacity to step into being the parent you want to be right now. I want you to feel the capacity to be the parent you want to be, to have that confidence, that commitment, and not let anything stop you. Because the worst thing that can happen is an emotion, and you can handle that. I want you to feel that. I want you to feel that in your bones. It's how I feel. So your desire, what you want deeply, it's not random. It's important. It's like a GPS. It's guiding you to the best version of yourself. But if every time you hit a red light, you decide to turn around and go home, you're never going to get to your destination. And let's be real. The journey isn't all rainbows and daisies. It's not all beautiful. There are distractions and roadblocks and challenges and potholes and construction and flat tires and car problems. But that's the hero's journey. It's about facing obstacles, going through them, becoming stronger because of them. And it's not even just about what you achieve. It's about who you become along the way. Okay, so that was the first thing that's actually not about what we're even going to talk about today on the podcast. A little side note. And now let's get into what we want to talk about. The idea that I want to talk about with you today, the main idea, although it's probably going to end up being 50-50, half of what I just talked about with feeling our emotions, not letting anything stop us, and half about this idea of our perception of our days. This has been on my mind a ton because over the years, I've noticed reoccurring patterns I have about how I classify days. I have good days. I have bad days. I have hard days. I have easy days. And over the years, I've decided that I want to have no hard days. That doesn't mean I'm going to not have challenging days. It doesn't mean there's not going to be days that are more packed full of unpredictable events. But I've been considering for a while this idea that there's no hard days. There's no such thing as a hard day. And if you're thinking, hold your horses, Andee, what are you talking about? What is going on? This is absolutely insane. I want you to stick with me for a minute. At least entertain the idea that this could be true. Because what do we have to lose by exploring it? So I'm going to dive into the idea first and then share some details about it. Okay. So what do I mean? What do I mean by there are no hard days? So every day happens. It just happens. Whether you like it or not, the sun rises. Hello, new day. Here we come. Right? They just happen. It's like that old question. If a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? Something to think about. If there's no one to hear it, does it even matter? Now, if a day unfolds, how do you know if it's bad or if it's good? Really, how do we know? We don't. We don't until we assign that meaning to the day. So what if there was no such thing as hard days until a mind decided that it was a hard day? Now, let's say that's what creates the hard day. It's not the events themselves, but the thoughts we have around them. You following me? This is such an important concept. So many of the parents I work with come to me saying, I had a very bad day yesterday, or I did this very bad thing at bedtime. It's just really hard. And I remind them, you're choosing to tell yourself the story it was a hard day or a bad day. And we come at it in the most loving, kind way. We don't want to rush to and push aside the part of us that thinks it's a hard day. But what I do want to offer you is when you're ready to start questioning, is that true? Is that true? Or is it my thoughts about the day that shaped how I feel? And if it's my thoughts about the day that shaped the way I feel about it, now I have the ability to start to shift. So you always have the option to approach life as if there's no such thing as a hard day, because what makes something feel hard isn't the events themselves, it's how we think about them, the perspective we take, the attitude we bring. I've talked about this before on the podcast, this idea that our past only exists in our minds. And it goes right along with this idea of no hard day, this idea that we are creating the meaning in our life. And some of the meaning we've put on things we love. But if we've put meaning on things that are creating us to go into a negative cycle, a low value cycle, a negative spin, it might be worth looking into that and understanding ourselves and why we're putting that meaning on it, and if we want to keep putting the meaning on it. How do you want to think about your days? When you catch yourself saying, oh, that was a really hard day, or I'm having a really hard day, what's really going on in your mind? How do those thoughts make you feel? Now, if you're the kind of person who says, I had a really hard day, but I can do hard things, I handled it like a rock star, that empowers you. Great, keep doing that. But let's be honest, most of us are saying, I had a really hard day, and because of the negative emotions that come up around it, it creates momentum to not showing up. It creates excuses for why we aren't good or why things aren't working out. It's a reason often that we use against ourselves to not be our best selves, a reason to avoid processing our emotions or staying connected. But what if there was no such thing as a hard day? The only thing that makes it hard is your mind. I love asking myself this. What are the thoughts I had about today that created the conclusion that it was hard? Because a day by itself is just a day. And then I get to put the meaning to it. And I am not saying any of this, y'all, to use this against yourselves at all. There's a part of you that is going to define certain days as hard and certain days as easy, certain days as good, certain days as bad. But when we start becoming the observer of our life, we get to have more capacity to change and influence things and ultimately create the life we want. I love the freedom that comes from the possibility that I could notice myself saying this is a hard day and interrupt the pattern. So if the only thing that makes a day hard is the perception we have around it, the meaning we've put on the events of the day. So if our brain says meltdowns are bad, whining is bad, burning the bacon is bad, now we have this meaning on the day and it's hard or it's not good or we're failing, but it doesn't become any of those things until we create that meaning around it. And a lot of times this is subconscious. So that's why I love the conversations we're having here on the podcast. I love the conversations we're having in League, because we're having this conversation about things that most likely are going unnoticed in your subconscious that you want to start to look at and bring to your conscious awareness so that you can feel the emotions that need to be felt. You can question the defaults that no longer serve you. So let's say you notice one day this brain of yours, it's trying to be helpful. Thank you, brain, for trying to be helpful. Your nervous system is trying to keep you safe, and we're so grateful for that. But we notice that they've come together, they've tag teamed to create the interpretation of today as today being hard. So if that's the case, we notice it, we interrupt it. We could ask ourselves, why am I choosing to think this about my day? Everything's relative. So your perspective, your mindset, how you decide to approach your experiences are something that you can have inquiry about. So if you're inspecting this, your first answer to that question is, why am I choosing to make this feel really hard? You might say, well, I had a hard day. It's just the facts. And if I say, okay, now tell me the story of how great your day was yesterday. If yesterday was a hard day and you have that whole story and you've told me that whole thing, can you now tell me how great yesterday was? And oftentimes when I'm doing this with someone for the first time, they'll look at me like I'm crazy and they'll say, what do you mean? I just told you it was so hard. And they'll say, no, you also had a great day. You're just not seeing it that way yet. What if that wasn't true? Or not completely the 100% truth? Like maybe that describes part of your day. What's the part that your brain's not noticing that was great? What would your experience have been of yesterday if you didn't have that belief that it was hard? What would that be like? And people struggle. I get this too, because this was something I struggled with a lot. So I have them step back and consider, did you have clean drinking water yesterday? Were your children healthy? Were you alive? Were you able to walk? Were you able to hear? Were you able to see? Were you able to get where you needed to go? Driving a car, taking a bus? Did you sleep in a warm bed? Do you see what I mean? We're looking at both sides. We're giving equal airtime to all the parts of our day. And I love doing this because it's building the muscle of noticing and being grateful for what we do have. Yeah, our child may have thrown a 2-hour tantrum, but we ended up having a good bedtime, or we ended up having at least a moment after that tantrum where we connected, or was able to go to sleep or take a bath. And because of the way our brains work, they filter out the things that aren't giving us answers for the questions we're asking. So if I'm asking the question like, God, or rather even making a statement, it wants to prove the statements that we have. So if I'm saying this was a hard day, the evidence it's going to be collecting, the things it's going to be letting filter through are to show me that that indeed is the case. And this is the way we're built. And it's just the way it is. And when we know that this is that way our operating system works, we can use it to our advantage and say, okay, yeah, part of me feels like this was a really hard day, but part of me wants to explore the possibilities that there were some great things that happened yesterday too, or today, wherever you're applying it. Was it yesterday? Was it today? Where was the hard day last week? And try to see if you can collect some evidence for how it was an amazing day. And we're not doing this to thought swap, as I was saying at the beginning. We're not trying to negate the part of us that thinks it was a hard day. We're honoring that part, makes sense that there's part of us that thinks that, and we're also strengthening another side of us. We get to decide how we define our experience. When I have parents come to me and tell me that their days were hard, what I find is actually the case is a deep-rooted belief that they're not good enough, that they're not strong enough, that they're not worthy, that they need other people's approval. And they might not be realizing they're thinking that way, but they're using their daily struggles as proof that they're weak, that they can't handle it. And when I hear that, I say, of course it's hard. Building a business is hard. Losing weight is hard. Parenting is hard. Doing our laundry is hard. Being a good friend can feel hard. So that's life. Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were stronger. You probably heard that quote, I can do hard things, I'm up for it. But if you're using something being hard as a reason not to do it, ask yourself why. Why does hard mean you can't do it? I remember after COVID, deciding to go back to the gym. It was so hard. And there was a big part of me that did not want to go, but my boys were going. And granted, I was very inconsistent until about 2 years ago. But knowing that it was going to be hard when I went and tried to lift those weights at the gym was a known entity. I knew that was the way to get more physically toned, was to lift the weights, to have the soreness, to have it be hard. That was the process. It was very clear to me. There was no way to create a stronger body without having the discomfort and the hard of the weights. It's the same with every aspect of our life. So again, if you're using being hard as a reason not to do it, ask yourself why. Why does hard mean you can't do it? The only explanation is that you believe you're not strong enough, and that's just a belief, not a fact. Your attitude, your mindset, your perspective, those are all things we can intentionally create. So how was your day today? Amazing. It was easy. It was wonderful. It was extraordinary. Out of all the ways you could describe your day, what are you going to choose? What do you want to choose? Are we going to go with hard? Really think about that. What exactly was hard about it? Here's an exercise that I often give my clients that I'd love for you to try. If you think you had a hard day, write down exactly what happened. What are the facts? Maybe your child threw a tantrum. Maybe the laundry machine broke. Maybe your kids started fighting. Maybe bedtime was a disaster. Your child's sports team lost their championship game. Your friend said she wasn't going to meet you for lunch today. Whatever it is. Your husband was insensitive. Write it down. Just the facts. Now ask yourself, what made it hard? What were the thoughts you had about those things that made you feel like they were so challenging and difficult? Because what you'll realize is this: what makes something hard isn't the event itself. It's how you think about it. It's what you believe about yourself and your abilities and the world around you. I remember when I had my first child thinking going to the store was so challenging, so hard, because now I had a child and it was much more difficult than going by myself. And then I had 2 and 3. And by the time I got to 4 or 5, especially when I got to 6, if I could go to the store with just one child, it was a dream. Even if it was the baby, it was so easy, so much easier than going with 6. My capacity had changed. My perspective had changed. And that's how it is with life. Go to the gym, lifting 20 pounds, so hard. And then you go consistently and now you're lifting 40 or 50 or how many ever you're, a lot. And now the reality is that what used to be hard isn't hard. The hard was the way through to where you are now. So how we define our experience ultimately shapes how we become. If we call a day hard just because our kids were fighting, traffic was heavy, our partner was in a bad mood, what does that say about us? That we're not strong enough, that we're not capable, that we expect life to be easy, effortless, and free of obstacles, that we don't want to deal with discomfort, that we'd rather glide through life without resistance. This is a subtle but insidious mindset. And it's also so fascinating when we start to see it, because we can begin to redefine it. We can begin to see the challenges as gifts, the triggers as teachers, the privilege of being a parent as one of the best schools of learning to increase our emotional capacity, to become someone we really love and respect because of the challenges. We need those challenges. We need those quote unquote hard days that we can become who we want to become. I've talked to so many people who have said that they're frustrated because things aren't flowing more easily. And they think that if something doesn't happen effortlessly, that if things aren't falling right into place, right straight off their ideas of how the world should work right into reality, that something must be going wrong. They're not meant to be the parent because they can't figure out bedtime. They can't have the patience. They're not enjoying this whole idea of playing with their kids. They're just stressed out, and they want to be better, but they can't. And it's just, why isn't it working? Something must be wrong with me. I'm doing something wrong. And I tell them, no, that's just a story you're choosing to believe. What if you decided to see your life as something incredible, something designed to challenge you? Things aren't supposed to happen effortlessly. That's not how it works when we go to the gym. We know that. You don't get a 6-pack by not doing the work that it takes to create the definition in those muscles and the growth in those muscles so you have it. We know that. And it's the same with all of life. It's the obstacles that make us who we are. So what if every challenge, every tantrum, every teenage eye roll, every toddler disaster mess, Sharpie drawn all over the wall. That was the bane of my existence when my kids were little. They drew everywhere, crayons, Sharpies everywhere on people's faces. They left messes. They had tantrums, all of those things. What if every challenge was actually making you stronger? And that the more obstacles you face, the more opportunities that you're having to create value, to create capacity, to become that parent that you really already are inside of yourself that's just needing to be unveiled, to prove what you're made of, to step in to more fully who you are. Because that's the truth. The truth is the easier your life is, the less you need to show up, the less strength you need. And I want a life that requires me to be strong. I want to set an example of what's possible. I want to show up in a way that no matter what happens in my life, with my kids, in my world, that I still get to be the best version of myself. And the more I fully lean into parenting, the more I fully lean into life, the more I fully lean into the challenges, the more I grow into the person who can handle that next level of success, that next level of freedom. And I don't tell myself, once I get to this certain place, I cross this finish line, I then life's going to stop being hard. But I also try very hard to not tell myself that life being hard is a bad thing, because it's not. It's good. Hard is good. Hard is the challenge that makes us better. And hard can feel easy. I Voxer with a few friends of mine, and my brilliant friend Rebecca just was talking about her life and her up-leveling and her goals. And I was just, right before I jumped on to record this, she was sharing this and she said, but what if it could be easy? What if it could be easy? And I love that. Hard can be easy, meaning I'm welcoming it in. I'm saying, yes, I want this. This is going to create a better version of myself so that I can be the next level of human for my kids, for myself, for my life. Hard is the challenge that makes us better. Having a mindset of overcoming anything is essential, not because we're the smartest or the most talented, but what if it was because we had the most drive, that we were willing to push through anything, no matter what, that we had tenacity, and that we realized that to be the parent I want to be, the challenges are where the success comes from. Me recognizing my perfectionism, my lack of feeling good enough, and seeing that over and over and over again in my stories is what's going to eventually allow me to get past it, to up-level my confidence in myself, to increase my emotional capacity to feel good, to self-validate. One of the biggest misconceptions I see is this idea that successful people are getting there without effort, or it's not as hard for them. They had it the easy way. And I believe that for most very successful professionals and athletes and business people and entrepreneurs and, philanthropists, they have done the work to become the person that's capable of performing at that level. And it's easy, don't get me wrong. It's easy to look at professional athletes and think, wow, they just get to play their sport, have fun, and make millions of dollars. Or to see an actress or an actor and think, wow, they just get to act and enjoy themselves and rake in all the money. But when you really break it down, when you really look at what a day on a movie set actually looks like, it's grueling. And I had a cousin who was an Olympic athlete, and I remember hearing about what her training regimen was like, and it was insane. It was intense. The expectations are relentless. The coaches pushing them at a consistent level. I mean, it is, for most of us, it's mind-blowing, the commitment and the effort that they put into that. So telling ourselves, oh, they just have it easy. They just have to be pretty and show up and say a couple of lines if they're an actor, or do the little, run around the track if they're an athlete. That's not true. It's not accurate. And in our home, we love gymnastics. So we've studied Simone Biles and so many other Olympic level elite gymnasts. And when you look into what they give up, what they commit to, the hours that they put into getting their routines perfect, doing the cardio and the weightlifting and all of the conditioning to get their bodies in a state where they can throw those tricks, it's so intense. So when we underestimate the amount of effort it takes to become a high-level athlete or a successful, let's say, entrepreneur or a successful parent, then we begin to believe that our success should come easily too, that we should just be able to turn these relationships around in 24 hours, that bedtime should be fixed in a day, that our child that we've been struggling with for years should resolve all of the problems in a week. But here's the truth. Believing that success should come without challenges isn't realistic. It's limiting. Because when we tell ourselves that everything should be easy, that somehow we are entitled to success without struggle, we rob ourselves of growth. And when we believe that things are too hard, we end up quitting. We quit on ourselves as a parent. We quit on our path to becoming more patient, to becoming more loving, to becoming unconditionally the parent we want to be. We stop challenging ourselves. We give up. But that desire to be better, the desire that every human has, I believe, to change, to progress, to grow, that urge, it doesn't go away. And if we don't respond to it, if we don't show up as the best version of ourselves, we miss out. We miss out, not just on success, but on the growth that comes with it, the excitement of truly earning something. I used to say this all the time. If I have to choose between winning $1 million or earning $1 million, I choose earning it every single time because of what that would mean, because of who I would have become in the process. If I earned $1 million, let's say I lost it all, I would have the skill set to know how to do it again. But if I won it, well, it's just the luck of the draw. And don't get me wrong, either way, it would be fun to have the $1 million. It would be really, really fun, but it wouldn't be my $1 million in the same way. And it wouldn't mean the same thing. And I wouldn't be the same person if I won it versus earned it. So if you choose to see each day as amazing, as an opportunity for growth, as exactly what you need to make you the strongest version of yourself, your life will be completely different than if you're constantly telling yourself, I have a hard life, I have hard kids, I have hard relationships, I have, a hard house to deal with, I have laundry is hard, all of the things we say to ourselves. I'll probably have another hard day tomorrow. This mindset pulls us away from life. It shuts us down. It keeps us from growing and becoming the next version of ourselves. So what if you're up for all of it? What if the hard is exciting? It's not a negative. What if you said, I had so many challenges today and that was awesome. I'm really learning a lot about myself. I didn't nail all of them. I kind of fumbled a little bit, but I'm so glad I've been given so many opportunities to up level. What if we're saying that? What if we're like, there's no such thing as a hard day because I've got this. Or if it's hard, it's not a problem. Bring it on. What would you rather say about your life? Bring it on? Or, oh my gosh, why is this happening again? And I get it. I get why we do that. And I hope that you will hear me through this episode, not saying we try to push aside the part of us that is feeling like it's hard. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, let's look at that part. Let's get so familiar with that part of ourselves that believes that hard is bad, that it shouldn't be happening, that mess ups shouldn't be a part of our existence, that we should just know how to do everything perfectly. Let's just get to know that part of ourselves so that we can never be stopped by a challenge, so that we evaluate our day and we think, yeah, the kids were kind of on edge today, or I was a little bit grouchy today. Okay, it just means I was upset. I wonder why. Or that means the kids were on edge. I wonder why. We get to decide how we define everything. So start catching yourself when your brain, when that part of yourself starts labeling things as hard, and pay attention to those thoughts, because the stronger you believe yourself to be, the fewer negative hard days you'll have. You'll get excited about the challenges. A truly hard day is one where we're facing real challenges, like not having food or water, real danger. But beside that, where we don't have the control to change it, and that is truly hard and devastating and very challenging. But the other things that our brain is labeling as hard, the fact that we ran out of hot water, that the kids drew on the wall with a Sharpie, that they're fighting, that there's toys everywhere, let's start to look at those another way. Some people say, but can't you just let people have a hard day? People are already too hard on themselves. But honestly, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying love the part of you that thinks today is hard, and then start believing that it's possible to have a hard day and love every second of it, or to use every bit of it as a catalyst for growth, to not underestimate your ability to use that to become something better. So if we want our days to be feeling less hard, it's because of how we see them. It's because of our increased capacity. Remember the first workout class you ever took? Or the first time you ever tried to do yoga? Or the first time you ever tried to run a mile? I remember the first yoga class. It was a hot yoga class. They intentionally made the room very humid and very, very, very hot. I think it was over 100 degrees. And I thought I was going to pass out. I remember the first time I walked into a gym in this, I call it the second season of my life in my 40s, and looking around and seeing all of these 20-year-olds just killing it on the weights and thinking, who am I? What am I doing in here? This is not where I belong. Or trying to run again after having a belief for decades that I couldn't run and not being in the best shape and trying to get to a mile and feeling so embarrassed that that was so hard for me when my 15-year-old at the time was just running circles around me. But now there are no hard yoga classes. Going to the gym doesn't feel the same way. Running the mile is, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's not the challenge it used to be. I love that I'm challenging myself in all of those areas still, pushing myself to work out more. I'm doing harder classes, fitness classes, trying to learn how to run harder or longer rather. But the harder, the better. I don't call it hard anymore. I call it amazing. Is it challenging? Yes. Does my brain sometimes think I'm pushing too hard? Yes. Does it feel overwhelmed? Sometimes yes. But instead of labeling it as hard, instead of thinking I'm not good enough, instead of thinking I don't have the capacity, I think this is so amazing. I'm learning and I'm growing. So what if you started to see yourself and your life and your parenting and your kids through that lens? What if you refused to label anything as hard? What if you stopped using anything in your life as evidence that you weren't good enough, or anything in your life as an excuse to not go full in? What would that be like? Let's commit to that, you all. Let's commit to shifting our focus. Instead of saying it was hard, say it was amazing. I'm so strong. I can handle anything. I've got this. Bring it on. All right, you all. That's what I have for you today. And we kind of talked about 2 different topics today. I hope you enjoyed them both. I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks so much for listening, you all. If you are ready to learn more about Connect Method Parenting, if you've been listening to the podcast and you think, ooh, I'd love to be able to implement this in my life and with my parenting more, then check out Pivot. It's my 8-week program where we deep dive into learning and implementing Connect Method Parenting so that you can take this information and transform your parenting journey. Head over to connectmethodparenting.com to find out when the next group starts.